Hola, welcome. My name is Delia Ruiz. I am an author and educator, and the face behind Aventuras en ESL, which is a platform where I share diverse book picks focusing primarily on the Latinx, Latina, Hispanic culture. And today I have the honor of hosting an award-winning author and wonderful friend, Yamile Saied Méndez, author of many incredible books such as Where Are You From? What Will You Be? A personal favorite, Furia, the Horse Country series, recently a new romance book, Twice a Quinceañera, and the latest book, Our Shadows Have Claws. So let's welcome her in and explore a little bit more about her author journey.
Yes.
Bueno, Shamile, muchas gracias por estar conmigo hoy. Quiero saber cómo estás. How's your day today?
It's been really, really good. Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you today. And I've just been relaxing because I turned in a first draft yesterday. Even though it was only yesterday, I'm already feeling a little antsy for two editorial letters that I'm waiting for. But I'm also trying to savor a little bit of freedom and being able to catch up to shows and books that I've been wanting to read. How
Yes.
about you? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just happy that we get to meet today and we get to explore a little bit more about your author journey this year because honestly, it's 2022, the year is about to wrap up, and I've been seeing so many book releases on your end. So I'm just thinking, is she sleeping? What is Shamila doing? And I'm so excited. There's so many exciting books obviously coming out this year. But I want to know from your point of view, how has it been releasing multiple books this year for 2022?
It's been very wild. At the same time, last year I also had a ton of books out. It pretty much it seemed like they were all at the same time. But last year it felt a little worse because I had a lot of things that I had to draft and work on for 2022. So this year, when finally all those books that I sold in 2020 are coming out, it just feels like this big victory and this big relief that I did it. I don't know how, but things got done. And it's just exciting to see them out in the world and become real books and being shared by readers and being enjoyed and reviewed. So it makes it super real.
Well, I'm so happy. There's so many amazing books that came out this year that I was super excited about. And another edition that came out of your book was the Furia paperback edition, which I was super excited for because it just makes it easier for a lot of people to purchase as well. And paperback edition is usually a little bit less than the hardcover.
Yes.
And then recently you also announced that there was a French edition coming out. And
Yes.
so, I mean, I've seen the cover, and that cover is amazing
It's
too.
incredible.
So now I want to know, is there something in the works about a Spanish translation soon for Furia?
Yes. Furia comes out in Spanish in November. I believe it's November 21st. The date changed. It was supposed to come out September 15th or whereabouts, or 20th. I think that's a Tuesday. But then, like authors, we usually find out last when our books are coming out. And so I was looking at a bookstore website, and then I found out that the release had been postponed to November 22nd, actually. And
Save the date.
yes, I was never told. It'll be the same cover though, which is incredible, by Rachel Baker. She's also my agent's sister. So and I just adore this cover that she created. And so it's just super exciting. And like the French version, in which just will come out. I received my copies and I'm super grateful. And I thumbed through the translation. I love that there's footnotes for
Oh,
some things that
yeah.
they didn't translate from Spanish into French. They just kept them in Spanish and added a little annotation. But I was able to review the Spanish translation back in earlier in the summer, or even before the summer. It felt like the summer because I was in Orlando for a cheer competition at the time and it was super hot. But it was before school ended, so it must have been around April. And so I read the translation, and it was such a surreal experience. The translator, she's Evelia, I'm blanking out on her last name, but Evelia is from Argentina as well. So reading it was like listening to an echo of my thoughts. And it was just so incredible to see how she was able to render it into Spanish in such a faithful way. Sometimes when I'm reading translations from English into Spanish, I cringe a little bit inside because the wording seems a little awkward. Maybe because I've also done a lot of translation. Sometimes I think, oh, I would have done this a little differently. With the translation of Furia, I was just in awe, and I just got immersed once again in the world of Camila and Diego and all the characters. And she also added footnotes for little the historical notes, or sometimes when, for example, Diego's talking about the coach in Italy and he refers to him as the Mister, there's a footnote that explains where the term the Mister came from for soccer coaches in Europe. And I didn't know that. And I thought it was amazing that she had done that research and so much work. And to be honest, it feels a little bit longer, maybe because in Spanish sometimes we need more words to say something. So I could go on and on about the translation for
that's
ages,
so exciting.
but I just love it.
Yeah, because I mean, for my family members, a lot of them don't read in English, and so I'm waiting for the Spanish translation so I can like pass on this
I love it.
information. And so I don't know if you're the same way, that you're like waiting for the Spanish, so a lot of your family
Yes.
members might also can read it as well.
Yes, for example, one of my scholastic middle grades, Random Acts of Kittens, it's dedicated to my godmother, but she doesn't read English. So maybe one day, but for example, Wish Upon a Stray will be out in Spanish in September. And I know Horse Country 1 at least will be out in Spanish in March of next year. So little by little, they're being translated.
Yay! I know, and I love that series too. That series is beautiful. But just touching back on what we were saying about Furia, I know recently en la aplicación de Ruiz, leí las escenas eliminadas del capítulo 10 de Furia. It's, the original 10 chapter. Y yo quiero saber, ¿había otras escenas de Furia que habías planeado originalmente, pero que decidiste omitir?
Sí, hay dos específicamente. So there's one when she is inside this, because originally Diego wasn't playing in Italy. He was also a Rosario Central player. And so she goes to that game that I referred to in the first chapter that Central's playing. Instead of going to her own game, she goes to the Rosario Central game. Not that she didn't have a game, and that's why she goes to the Rosario Central game. And so she sees Diego score, her brother, he does well. So that's how I had introduced the characters. So at the beginning, she's late to the game, but it's the professional men's team. But then during revisions, when, I wanted her to be the protagonist in every single way, we deleted that scene. There is another scene at the soccer stadium. Okay, so I'm going to say something terrible. There are quite a few, actually. Furia went through so many iterations that it feels like, different books every single time. There is a version of Furia in which Pablo dies, the brother.
Oh, yeah.
And so Diego comes back into town, and they go together to like a championship game that Pablo was supposed to play. He's not there. It's a very emotional scene for both Diego and Camila. I based it on this championship game that I went to when I was 16. Rosario Central was losing. Rosario Central had lost 40-0 against this team in Brazil. So they had to tie at least by 4 goals, and they did. And they went to the penalty shots, and Central won. That was our first international title. And so I had kind of like inspired that scene on that real event. But then, it was it didn't fit in the story. So it went out. But yeah, I just wanted to show a professional stadium from the inside. and
That
to
sounds
show
amazing.
the readers. I guess we'll just have to show YouTube videos now.
Or I'm waiting for like a movie deal
Hmm.
announcement. Like we need to add
Well,
you at Netflix at
I
all
can't
of
say I
the
can't say very much, but just rest assured there have been a lot of secret meetings this last summer and conversations, and hopefully we'll be
yeah.
able to announce something soon.
Well, I'm crossing my fingers
Yes, me
for all
too. My
this for
toes,
good
my
news.
fingers, everything.
I love that. So, Furia is a personal favorite. I love this book. When I read it, I've read it like a couple of times. Like I
They're
have
my
extra,
favorite.
yeah, there's like extra copies everywhere. Like I don't know why I need so many, but I think the aesthetic too. It's like this beautiful orange cover, and I was like, it's a beautiful book. But now I kind of want to know. Obviously, there's not a Furia part two, but from your point of view, where do you envision Camila and Diego are now?
Well, I envision them getting ready for their World Cups. So the men's World Cup was postponed from the summer to the fall because it's being
Mhm.
played in Qatar, and because of obvious reasons that how hot the summer is there, it was moved to November, and then the women's World Cup in Australia comes up in our summer, but it's their winter. So very interesting World Cups coming up, and both the men and the women from Argentina, the teams qualified for the World Cup. So I envision them getting ready for that
I
and
love that answer.
cheering each other on.
I love that. I am secretly envisioning that for them because I mean they were both such incredible characters in that book, and I'm rooting for them wherever they
Thank
may
you.
be.
I love that you have the jersey. I couldn't wear the jersey because I had a previous event for
I know.
Quinceañera. Look at that. And I had something else right after. And I'm like, I can't change now, but
Well, I'll be rooting over here.
thank you.
Um, so, Jamila, of course, this is a crazy busy year. It's a fruitful year. There's been so many amazing books. And this past July, you also released your romance book, Twice a Quinceañera.
Yes, here it is.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And I just found myself in love with Nadia Palacios and that character, mainly because you really talked about celebrating yourself. And I think oftentimes, especially if you come from like a first gen household like mine, it's so hard. You're constantly in that grind and that hustle to like build and climb and dream that you forget to like breathe and celebrate yourself and pat yourself on the back. And so I
Yes.
kind of want to know from your perspective, how do you celebrate your wins? How do you celebrate your big and small wins?
Okay, so that's something that I have also had to learn because especially last year and this year with so many books coming out, books that I had dreamed of for so long. Sometimes people are like, how do you have time to write them all? Some of them had been written for a while, they just hadn't sold. And then, just had to revise them. So when they finally come out, I was already on deadline for something else. And it was very easy to be like, okay, this doesn't belong to me anymore. Go out into the world, do your thing, and just think about the next thing coming up. But I've had to learn how to celebrate even the small victories, like, getting my word count for the day. And sometimes I try not to celebrate with food, and I want to have a healthy relationship with food. Sometimes, I mean, there is a time for cake and chocolate, but I try to um, celebrate by allowing myself to just bask in the moment, like reading a review from a reader who said, that Nadia's journey meant so much for them. I try to spend time outside, watch a show that I've been wanting to for a long time, or read a book. So when I sent actually the last draft from my second romance, I dedicated that whole weekend to reading a book that I had been looking forward to all year, which is, I'm going to show it because I've been just talking about this book nonstop, Babel by
Oh, I've
Rebecca
heard good
F.
things about
Kwan.
that one. Yeah.
So good. I love it so much. And I finished it and I got the audio version so that I can reread it in audio. So for me, that's a reward, or getting a special kind of pen, or going out with a friend. Yesterday, I went to lunch with a friend, and neither one of us had to be anywhere right after that. So we took the time to just talk and just be in the present. So that's important. And sometimes when there's something big that happens that, you have to have a party. My husband's from Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans are always have an excuse for a party.
Yes.
And he was like, okay, on Friday, let's get our friends together for a dinner and a little dance party. And so I'm more of an introvert that requires a lot of energy from me, but I love spending time with our friends. So I will, sometimes I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and do that.
And sometimes those parties that are not planned are some of the best ones. I've told you before,
Yes.
my husband is also Puerto Rican, so it's like vámonos, and like you don't even know where you're going sometimes, pero la
I
fiesta
know.
es night. You're there all night.
Yes.
But those are such great ways to celebrate yourself, and I really appreciate that response because it's taking the time to do the little things that make you happy, whether it's something small or big. And I think that's one of the big lessons that, I found myself reflecting on when I read this book. And, it's a brand new release. It's a beautiful book. And I know recently, tu hija también tuvo una quinceañera. And so before we get to
Sí.
that, yeah, I want to know, ¿tú tuviste una quinceañera y cómo planeaste la quinceañera de tu hija en medio de book release, sus deadlines?
Wild. Okay, so I will show you. I still have some of the flowers left over from that. I don't know if you can see them. Where there's the flowers.
Oh, those are
It's
so pretty.
almost 3 weeks. I mean, 2.5 weeks ago, and the flowers are still beautiful.
They're still thriving.
So I had a quinceañera, and it was a big sacrifice for my parents. I was born and raised in Argentina, and my mom hadn't had a quinceañera, and she wanted me to have one, and I wanted to have one too because I went to an all-girls school. So so high school in Argentina is 5 years. In my third year of high school, I must have gone to 100 quinceañeras. Every Friday and Saturday there was a quinceañera, and so mine was very small and humble, but it was at an event, a place like at the salon. Salon in English means something different, but that's why we call it salon de fiesta. And I had my cake, and in Argentina we pulled some ribbons from the cake, and there's a little trinket, and at the end of one of them there's a golden ring. So we did the cake ceremony and the candle ceremony, in which the quinceañera calls different people from their life to help them light the candle, and the father-daughter dance, and it was very special. A woman from my neighborhood made my dress, so she was the official quinceañera maker. And like in Furia, Camila's mom is a modista, a seamstress, and she makes quinceañera dresses, and she was loosely based on this woman from my neighborhood, whose name I don't even remember now, but she made every quinceañera's dress, and it was white.
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
It was white. Sometimes I have to look at pictures. I don't have a lot of pictures from my childhood, but I have a couple of them from my quinceañera. And I look so awkward, but I was so happy. So
that's what matters.
Yes, my little brother was 10, and oh my gosh, he was beaming. And so when we threw my younger daughter's quinceañera, so my first daughter had hers 5 years ago. She just turned 20. And then my little one has been planning this party for 5 years. And so when her birthday is actually in November, but she wanted an outdoor party. We live in Utah, so we waited until the summer, and it was the Saturday before school started. And to plan this party, I started really early because I knew my summer was already super busy. I had so many deadlines, so many things all at the same time. But I also had a lot of help. My husband was amazing, and we had help from friends, and we had contacted different vendors from, a long time ago. The dress was perhaps the most difficult part because my daughter at first wanted a black dress.
Uh-huh.
And we got one, but when we saw it, we ordered it from Amazon, by the way. They have everything. And when we got it, she was like, oh, I don't like it. So we sent it back. And then we went to all the quinceañera shops in our area, which are not many, but we have a few. And then she found a perfect silver dress that she loved. and she wore for like 45 minutes because she changed
Right after.
into a black mini dress so she could dance and party with her friends. And that night, it never rains in Utah, but that week it rained every day. And it rained that night, and we were so anxious that the rain was gonna ruin everything. But in the end, it actually made it more magical and beautiful. She said that it made her feel like it was a movie with the
Oh, I
rain
love
falling down on
that.
her and her friends. And I mean, it's been more than 2 weeks, and we're still talking about it every day because it was a magical night. And it was really beautiful to, so the difference between planning the two quinceañeras for my daughters, having had twice a quinceañera come out right before, the last party, was I wanted to keep in mind at all times that it was her party, whatever made her happy. She wanted a black dress. I kind of cringed inside a little, but it was her party. She wanted to change from that silver dress into just a, common miniskirt that you couldn't tell her apart from anybody else, but she was happy with her friends. I let her do whatever. It was her party.
Right.
So, and
Actually,
then we didn't get to do the toast because we had planned like an itinerary for the party, but the band was playing, everybody was dancing, and she said, "Oh, I don't want to cut off the dancing because then people will think we're telling them to go home after the toast." So we didn't do a toast, and nobody knew, and
there
so
you
we just keep going.
as long as she had fun, it just sounded like
Yes.
you had the best day. And I've actually seen amazing black dresses. And so I'm just glad that she got something that she loved at the end of the day. And it sounds
Yes.
like your family had a great time. And it's just funny because when I heard that you were planning this, I was like, oh, that kind of goes with like her book. Like she's planning a quinceañera around the time of
I
book release. It's like the
Yes,
perfect time.
it was meant to be. And I didn't know about the tradition of double or triple quinceañeras until a couple of years ago. I think I found that in 2019 because a good friend of mine turned 40, and she threw herself a fortiañera, and
Oh,
she had never had a quinceañera when she was 15, because again, in an immigrant family, all that money, sometimes it's best to put it towards your education or things that come up, or
right.
a lot of girls will just to go on a trip. And so, but then, when you're older, you're like, okay, I haven't really celebrated my life. And that's what she thought. That was her thought process. And she threw herself the fortiañera, and that's where the idea for Nadia and her treintañera came from. But I love that. I love that the act of taking charge, and now that you can do it, just do it on your own terms.
Yes, and it's a good reminder just to celebrate yourself. I think this book kind of hit hard because this was the year I turned 30, and I was like, oh, like I needed like a summer book to read because I have a summer birthday. And I was like, okay, I found the one.
It was meant to
It was
be.
meant to be for sure.
Especially for, sometimes we look to those landmark birthdays like the 30s, 40s, 50s with dread and apprehension. Oh no, my youth is
Mhm.
wasted, or the best part of my life is over. But I'm 44, so my triple quinceañera is coming up, and I will say that I always felt like the years that came, like the new year, has always been better than the last. And I feel more confident in my own skin in my 40s than I ever did in my 20s. And, I just hope that young women who read the book will decide that they don't have to, be dreading a certain age, and that there's magic and beauty no matter what your stage in life is.
That's beautiful. And now that you say that, now I'm looking forward to my 40s. I thought the 30s
Yes,
was good. Now I'm
40s
like,
are
let's
awesome.
bring it on.
Yes, because you get to the point that you're like, okay, who cares? Who cares? Just wear the shorts, wear the two-piece swimsuit, eat the
Yes,
cake.
yes. No, that's a beautiful reminder, Jamilan. And, again, the year hasn't ended and we're about to hit September. So switching gears, our shadows have claws. It's coming
Ah!
out. And this is one that I'm super excited about, especially because, it's Latin American stories, monster stories. And, you know, obviously it's beautiful. Like I recently just got the new book and I was like, the
Look at
picture with the
that. It's
cover.
gorgeous.
Yes, and I also love the names. I love how Mendez Ortiz, you and Amparo are here.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And I just kind of want to know a little bit about your story in the book. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind the story La Madrina. And I also want to know, do you watch horror and enjoy those kind of stories in your personal life?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking all these questions because I could go on and on and on. First of all, look at that gorgeous cover that Ricardo Lopez Ortiz did. Amparo and I joke because, I mean, he's Lopez Ortiz, but he has no relation to Amparo, who's Amparo Ortiz, Amparo, my
Sí.
co-anthologist. My second last name, I use my pen name is Saied Méndez. Saied is my maiden name. Mendez is my husband's name. But my real name is Saied Lopez.
Uh-huh.
Lopez was my mom's name. So we said we're all related on the
Yes.
cover. And so I just love the illustrations. Each story is illustrated. My story is called La Madrina, which means the godmother. I have a very tender spot in my heart. I talk about my madrina from Argentina, who is, you know, like my second mother. And my mom passed away 8 years ago. And when I went to Argentina 3 years ago was the first time that I visited after my mom, or the second time after my mom had passed away. And it was wonderful to be mothered again
Uh-huh.
by somebody who's known me all my life. So for me, madrinas are sacred people, you know, like a mother. And so La Madrina, actually, I've been thinking about this story ever since I was a little girl. I used to love the fairy tales from the Grimm brothers and the Andersen fairy tales as well. There is a fairy tale called Godfather Death, and it talks about a poor man who is having a new baby son. And he goes out onto the road to find a godparent. And he comes across God and he says, no, you're not going to be the godfather because you only favor the rich. And then he keeps walking, finds the devil. Oh no, I'm not going to choose you as the godfather because you just protect the evildoers. And then he comes across death. And he says, you will be the grandfather because you take rich and old, evil and good people. You don't discriminate. And so death, who is a male figure in the story, becomes the godfather for this
Mhm.
boy. Later on in the story, this boy becomes a doctor, and Death shows him a secret chamber in his house where there are candles that signify the soul of all human beings. And then this boy falls in love with the girl who he wants to save. But when he goes into the secret chamber, sees that her candle is super small. So he defies death, relights another candle so she lives longer, but then death takes revenge and blows out his candle. It's a very tragic story that made such an impression on me when I was a
Yeah.
little kid. I reread that story so many times. In the Latin American tradition, though, death is usually seen as a woman, as a grandmother.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, since I went to high school in Latin America, I'm not sure if you have read the La Casa de Bernarda Alba, which is a classic in Latin American literature that I read in high school, and then I read again when I did my minor in Latin American studies. And so in that story, Bernarda Alba is an old lady and she is death. And so combining all these little threads, when I went to do my master's degree in Vermont, this is such a long answer, but this is the real story.
Yeah.
When I went to
Wanna
do
know.
my master's, we're working on fractured fairy tales. And of course, everybody's choosing Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and like Godfather Death. Yeah. Because I've always loved the tragic ones. And I turned death into the godmother. And then there was also another short story by Julio Cortázar, an Argentine author of the caliber of Jorge Luis Borges. Perhaps he's not very as well known as Jorge Luis Borges in the United States, but he wrote Rayuela, Hopscotch. And he also has a collection of short stories. I read one that's called The Night Upside Down. And it's about a man who goes in a motorcycle and has an accident. But when he wakes up, he is in pre-Columbian America. And he's being sacrificed by this indigenous group. And then when he wakes up again, he's upside down on the road. He had this accident, he's dying. So you don't know what was real, what was not.
Oh
So
my gosh, that
I
sounds
kind
so
of
bad.
borrowed a little
Yeah.
from all over. And that's what we writers do, right? We just combine a little patchwork and make our own story. And so I wanted to show Rocio, my character, making the choice of not choosing God or the devil, of choosing death. But what it means when she chooses death, she learns to love life. And then at the end of the story, you don't know if any time has gone by at all. At least that was my intention as a writer. If that time that she spent with Godmother Death was real or not. But she has a new determination to make her life worthwhile. And
Right.
so that was that's the story behind it.
You're right, because at the end of the story, she doesn't see the shack anymore. So it's like, did it happen? Did it not?
Yes,
Like,
and her tooth is
tree.
loose, like
Yeah.
she still has the wounds from jumping from the moving cars. So I wanted to leave the reader wondering if that happened, if it didn't, and be curious of what she's gonna do next. Like in
Yes.
choosing death, she chose life. And so I love the fascination with that a lot of writers have, talking about death and the meaning of life. I try to put it all in a short story.
Yes, and there's so many short stories on here. Yours was a beautiful, well-written one, and one that I kind of wanted to know the more inspiration behind it. But to our viewers, I'm going to be linking the link to this book so you can pre-order it or order it, and also request it from your library because
Yes.
this is such a great book. I'm so glad this exists.
And I am also going to say our publisher, Quinceañera readers, they also have the rights for the Spanish version. But unless a Spanish publisher buys it, it won't come out in Spanish. So I urge all our readers, flood the Spanish publishers like Planeta, Vintage Espanol, ask for this book in Spanish because that's my greatest dream, to see it translated into Spanish.
Okay, we gotta go.
And Portuguese,
go
because
now.
we have Gabi's story, and Gabi's from
También.
Brazil. And
I
while
love
we're at it, in Creole, because we have Maritza and
Yes,
Mayra,
from
who are,
Haiti.
yes, from Haiti. So yes, we needed to know the Romance languages at least.
Yes, that's a goal that let's try to get there. I think
Yes.
the more we know about this book and people can pre-order it and request it from the library, anything. Let's get the word out on this one. This is one of many releases that you've had this year. So en una entrevista pasada escuché que algunos de tus hijos aún no han leído uno de tus libros y yo quiero
No.
saber, are they planning to read some of your upcoming titles and how do they feel about these releases? Are they excited for some of your upcoming work too?
Well, all of them, my 5 children are super excited about the anthology. They love horror. They take after their mother. What can I say? And it's also very telling that 2 of my books that came out this year reflect my passions as a reader. I always see myself as a reader first. I consume stories in every form. And during the pandemic, what I kept going back and forth was romance and horror. I could do, like that's what I found Train to Busan. I watched all my favorite horror movies while I was working on the anthology, and also all the favorite romance stories. They both ends of the spectrum bring me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And it's just I love that they're both volumes are coming out in 2022. But yes, all my children are excited about the anthology, and even my son's friends from the soccer team were at the house when I got my arcs, and they were like, it was the first time that the boys were like, maybe because like Furia, I've had a lot of readers who are men or boys, but sometimes having a girl on the cover, like I don't mind if they don't read it, but I hope they would, but sometimes boys, if they see a girl on the cover, they're like, oh, this is not for me. With Our Shadows Have Claws, there's not a face, even though every author in the anthology is either a woman or a non-binary person. And so I think, they'll be surprised when they read it.
Yes. We'll have to see their reactions.
Yes.
Well, Yamile, obviously 2022 has been such a great year. I'm so excited to hear more about your upcoming projects in the next years. But before we head out, before we go, I want to play a quick game with you because I've heard that you're a Bad Bunny fan. And
I love Bad Bunny. Yes.
I've heard that you like the music. I've seen some of the music tagged in your stories. And so I was like, let's make the end of this some Bad Bunny fun
I love
questions.
it.
So, question number one, I want to know what is your favorite song from the Umbrano Sinti album?
Oh, I love, let me see. Después de la playa, it just makes me happy every single time. I'm in awe of how he could merge so many genres. Titi me preguntó, but I will say Ojitos Lindos is
Ah,
my favorite, but also 2016.
yeah.
2016 has so much longing, and the lyrics are pure poetry. I just love it. I just love how Bad Bunny, he's non-apologetic about writing music for Puerto Ricans. If you're not Puerto Rican and you like it, that's also good. I mean, and the
Mhm.
whole world agrees. The whole world likes it. But he writes it specifically for Puerto Ricans. Sometimes I wonder, if you have no connection to Puerto Rico, how do you even know what he's
Right.
saying? Right?
It's so
But I just
catchy too.
love it. Exactly. But 2016 has to, I think those are my favorite lyrics of the whole album.
Those are great choices. For this next two questions, I want you to fill in the blank. Tú no eres bebecita, tú eres.
Bebesota.
Muy bien, you got it. Next one. This is again, you're gonna fill in the blank, but this time I'm gonna play the song and I want to see if you can fill in the blank. Let's see.
Okay.
Yo me
Baby,
porto.
yo me porto bonito y subo un
Yes.
selfie pa' que vea lo rica
Rico
que tú
que tú
estás.
estás. You got it. You got it. I was gonna say, I was gonna sing this lyric. I was like, no, I'm not a singer. Let's just play this clip.
I'm in my 40s. I don't care anymore. I was sing it.
I love that. Next question. So Benito's Puerto Rican. Your husband's also Puerto Rican. Does your husband also like Bad Bunny?
Oh, we adore Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
So he liked him first, from like the very very beginning. It took me a little longer to fall in love with it because I don't know. It's a different style. But my husband has like reggaeton since it was underground music. So and he's
Uh-huh.
always, I think the music is a way in which he keeps connected to the island. So he's always aware of everything new, and he loved Bad Bunny from the beginning. We went to the concert in March. We went in San Diego, and we're
Uh-huh.
going back to Las Vegas on the 24th for Umbrano Sinti, and
See,
I can't wait.
that was my next question. Is like, are you going to the world's hottest tour? Like,
Yes, absolutely. So I can't wait. I have a super funny story about playing Bad Bunny, because all my children are all bilingual,
uh-huh.
but the little one, he's 6 years younger than the main group of siblings, and the four older kids are their Spanish is awesome because my mom lived with us for a long time. I mentioned that she passed away, and she passed away when my youngest was still a baby, so he didn't have that immersion into Spanish. So when he replies in English, he knows everybody understands what he's saying. So it's been a little harder to keep him completely bilingual like the other kids.
Yeah.
But when we went to Argentina in 2019, it was just him and me. It took him a couple of days until the Spanish clicked in his mind, and then his tongue got loosened. And so we came back, and we're in the car listening to Bad Bunny. I don't know which album or which song was, like popular at the end of 2019. And he said something, and he said, "Oh no, Bad Bunny said," and it was like a swear word or something. And I was like, "Oh no, he understands everything." So It was just hilarious how
Oh
his
my God.
mind, like, it lit up like a light, like a light bulb coming out in his mind.
Those are the words they learn first.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh, I love it. That's when you know they're fully bilingual, that they know the swear words and they can use them properly.
Right? It's all language, like the language
Yes.
learn. Bueno, Yamile, fue un placer hablar contigo hoy. I'm so excited that we got to learn a
Igualmente.
little bit more about your author journey this year. I'm excited what next year and the next following years are going to bring. And again, igual fue un placer hablar contigo hoy. Te deseo lo mejor. Te mando un abrazo y beso. And hopefully we can chat again soon.
Gracias, Delia. You're always a champion, and I just enjoyed being with you all today. And thank you. Thank you for being so supportive, not only of my books, but of all Latina authors. And it's always a joy to chat with you. Thank you.
Likewise, Yamile, es que tengas un buen día y siempre te deseo lo
Gracias.
mejor.